everybody. Thank you so much for joining in this beautiful Friday on YouTube Live. Today we are talking about a camera shootout that we've been preparing for quite some time here with two PTZOptics cameras, two Sony cameras, and two Vaddio cameras. Really, we chose the top-selling PTZ cameras in the industry, and we said, let's go ahead and do a camera shootout. So let's go over our normal slides just to let everybody who's new know what's going on, and then we're going to go ahead and do our shootout. So as you know, every Friday here at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, and who knows what time it is in Belgium. We're really happy to have all of these people from around the world, Rudy and others in the chat room from all over the world. Thank you so much for being here. We donate to a charity, a local charity here in Pennsylvania every week. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and that allows us to actually add dollars to our donation. And this is a little explanation of our donation program. We're trying to hit $250 a week. We've already donated almost $15,000 this year. It's been a great program. This month in October, we have a really amazing, fun-packed month of live shows. Last week, we talked about do-it-yourself live streaming with video guys. In fact, I got a ton of Magewell capture cards here. We had Magewell on a couple years ago. It looks like it's 9 p.m. in Istanbul. Thank you so much for being here, Smart AV, Savek, and you guys over there. Hello from Wisconsin, Daniel. Really happy to have you. So today I have the Sony logo there. That's because we're looking at two Sonys, two Vaddios, two PTZOptics. We talked about that. Next week, we have Andrew Cross, the CEO and Chief Technology Officer of NewTek, the creator of the NewTek NDI, and an absolute genius, the grandfather of video production, if you will. I cannot wait to have him on the show. Don't miss next week's show. The following week, we're going to have Teradek. Teradek is a really great company that creates wireless transmitters, and I know that's a really popular topic. So I'm excited about that. We got so much to talk about today. The first thing I guess I want to do is get you guys familiarized with the cameras that we're going to be talking about today. So let's take this full screen here, and I want to show this off. So these are the cameras, and I'm going to let this loop through one more time here. So from left to right, we've got the PTZOptics 20X there. We have the Vaddio Roboshot. We have the SONY SRG-120DH, great camera, one of my favorites. The next we have the SONY EVI-H100S. That's a really great camera. And then we've got the PTZOptics. So let's show the backs of these cameras really quickly. Here's the back of the Vaddio ClearVIEW HD-20 that wasn't in that picture. Great camera. It has HDMI, analog, and some IP control options that are really great. And we're showing it right next to the PTZOptics 20X there. Let's take a look at the Vaddio Roboshot. This one, I'm going to pause this for a second, has PoE. That's a great feature that's coming to PTZOptics very soon. You'll hear more about that in the weeks to come. HD-SDI, and it's 3G SDI, meaning 1080p 60. HDMI and RS-232, and we can just continue to roll through, and you'll see the PTZOptics comparable model there with IP streaming, LAN in, HDMI, HD-SDI, and the RS-232 daisy chaining, which we're going to talk about because I've got a lot of cameras daisy chained to my joystick controller here that I really want to talk about. Here is the, this is the Sony EVI, and you can see it has analog and a 3G SDI with daisy chain 8-pin mini DIN controllers. Those daisy chains are really helpful to have. And then finally, last one here, this is the Sony SRG-120D. Great camera for live streaming. It's HDMI only, but it's got that 8-pin mini DIN control that is really, really nice. So what I want to do, start this off, is kind of explain, come on, there we go, explain what we're trying to do within this show here. So before we start, let's take a look at how we set these cameras up using the basics of exposure here. So as you can see, we have shutter speed, and that's really important. That's our motion control. Aperture, which controls our depth of field, and then gain. And these three together are really the pillars of getting a good exposure, right? So that's what we're talking about, getting an ideal exposure. So with that being said, there are still a lot of other advanced features such as luminous, contrast, saturation, sharpness, white balance, gamma. All of these really play to getting that perfect picture because there's so many different lighting scenarios. Color balance is something that we look at, and we'll talk a little bit about that. 2D and 3D noise cancellation if you're in a low noise environment. Backlighting is important, and then wide dynamic range. So once you have those three foundations of photography, shutter speed, aperture, and gain, set properly, then you can look at the other advanced features and get those tweaked to be just right. So we're going to look at some live sports options, and you can see here the reason why we're showing this on the right hand side is because shutter speed is our priority with live sports. You want to have a high shutter speed so you can capture the motion. In a conference space, aperture is a little bit more important. We can prioritize aperture. And then in low light, we need to prioritize gain. So just giving you an idea here. But overall, we're looking for the ideal exposure. And whatever it takes to get to the ideal exposure is what we're shooting for. So then we can start touching the advanced settings to really get that optimal view. So in an overall look at this, basically, a conference space is going to be the easiest thing we have to deal with. A production studio is the next tier up. Live sports is even more difficult. And then low light is really when it gets tricky. That's when we really start to have to deal with harder things to do. Guitar Guts is saying Sony is phasing out Visca after this year. I had no idea. We'll have to talk about that. Camera settings for conference spaces. Obviously 1080p 30 is fairly normal. In conference spaces, we usually set everything to automatic because there is no cameraman, right? So it is good to have manual focus, but if we don't have a cameraman, we normally set everything to automatic, and that's different for most of the other spaces we're going to look at. So for a production studio, when we're doing potentially 1080p 60, potentially 1080p 30, I'd like to know what you guys think there. But normally if you have a 1080p 60 camera, people say it looks a little smoother. You want to have that aperture as low as possible. Shutter speed usually is automatic because you are prioritizing aperture. And here we definitely want a manual focus. And this is kind of the scenario we have here, and we'll show we're using a joystick controller and an IR remote control. So we'll show that off, and I have a really interesting layout today that I think you guys are really going to like. And then for live sports, we're definitely doing 1080p 60 and a large aperture to get a really deep depth of field, or sometimes it's called a large f-stop, a small aperture. A fast shutter speed, maybe 1/120th is a standard that a lot of people do. Manual focus, there's that infinity sign to get a really nice wide field of view, and then a joystick is obviously good. In low light, now we're talking about contrast and hue, wide dynamic range. Probably don't need the 1080p 60, but we do want a small aperture, maybe even a slower shutter speed, maybe of 1/160th. But we still want to do a manual focus. You'd be surprised what focus can do in a low light situation. So this is what we have set up today, and this is what's going to be really interesting. So in our camera shootout, we've got 6 cameras. Our control is everything is using a Magewell capture card. So everything's going out either HDMI or HD-SDI to a Magewell capture card and connecting to a USB 3.0 port using our discrete USB buses that are individual buses for every single USB 3.0 port. We're not using a card that has shared chipsets. So you can see the only one that's really HD-SDI is the Sony EVI-H100S. Everything else is going HDMI. No problem there. These Magewell frame grabbers are our control in this scientific experiment that we're playing with here. And the frame rates for everything is basically 1080p 60 except for the Sony EVI-H100, which is just a 1080p 30 camera. So everything else is 1080p 60. So when you see this test footage, keep that in mind. It's an important piece of the puzzle. And we have a joystick controller, which I'm going to show off, that is daisy chaining control via 8-pin mini-DIN. The Vaddio controllers do not use 8-pin mini-DIN. They have a proprietary cable. We tried to create it, and we ran out of time before the show, so only 4 cameras are going to be controlled by the joystick. Okay, so that is that. Oops, sorry about that, everybody. Let's go back to our layout here. Okay, so now I'm going to jump right into setting up our camera layout. So bear with me here, but here is the first 3. Here's the second 3. And then there's, okay, so that's all 6 cameras there, and you should be able to see which ones are which there. Let's see if I can get that data screen off of the Vaddio Roboshot. There we go. Okay, so this is all 6 cameras here in 1080p 60. They've been tuned to what I felt like I tried to get them the best tuned possible. I can now go to my 12x and call this preset, so that, because I don't need myself on here anymore. So that this is all 6 cameras in 1080p 60, and I can also scroll through them in full screen, which I want to do. And then I want to think about this control piece again and show you guys our joystick controller here. So let me show that off. Where's my joystick? Here she is, right here. Let me just make it nice and small for you guys. Bum, bum, bum. All right, so I'm going to put the joystick in the top right. It's going to be overlaid a little bit, but I think that's okay. So here's my joystick controller right here, right? So I just want to show how easy control is, and maybe I need to make it full screen, but so now I'm controlling camera 1. Okay, so I'm going to zoom out. And guys, I'm gonna watch the chat. You guys tell me what you think we should be doing, because I want to listen to whatever you guys think is best. I can do full screen. I can do this 6 channel, but there, I'm zooming out with our 20x SDI there. So there it is, going back and forth. And now I can easily just go ahead and change to cam 2 by just hitting cam 2 there. And now I'm controlling cam 2. Super easy. So I'll zoom all the way in. This is our 12x. And zoom all the way out. And you can see quality-wise, everything's fairly close. And it's hard to judge quality because of how different all the settings can be, and the white balances and everything. And again, trust me, I did my best here. So I guess look at the frame rates, because that is a good part of it. Now we're looking at, this is the Sony EVI. Look at that. I think digital zoom is on this one. But there we go. Zoom in, zoom out. And you can see I'm using the joystick here to do so. The EVI is a nice camera, and I'm going to take them all full screen. I think that's the way to go here. Cam 4. So the Sonys have the digital zoom turned on. I should have turned that off because it can be a little confusing. But there we go. In and out. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to call a preset on this Sony real quick. So I have call 1, enter. Really nice, smooth zoom. All right, so let's look at all of these in full screen now. So here's the PTZOptics. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my joystick down a little bit. I'm going to put the joystick in right there. Okay. So again, here's the 20X. Oh, no, that's a Sony. Cam 1. So I just hit Cam 1. These are my cam buttons over here. So Cam 1, 2, 3, 4, hot swap. Cam 1. Zoom in and out. So the Where's Jeffy is saying he likes the Vaddio and the PTZOptics 20X. Color really pops on the PTZOptics. So let's show this one and then we'll show the Vaddio. You guys just tell me what you want to see and I will switch. So let's go to the Vaddio ClearVIEW. Boop. Here's the ClearVIEW. Now with the ClearVIEW, one of the things that's interesting is I don't have joystick control because they don't have the 8-pin mini DIN control. So I had to, here we go. All right, so here's the ClearVIEW all the way out, all the way in. So it zooms in. It's got a tighter field of view, so you can really see that how far it can zoom in. So let's do a zoom test here. So here's the 20X all the way in. That's the ClearVIEW 20X. Now let's look at the PTZOptics 20X in comparison. That's Cam 1, I believe. Okay, so it's close. If you look at the tail there, that's not too far off. They're the same distance, by the way. I mean, the distance is couldn't be closer to the same. So that's fully zoomed in on the 20X SDI. And then let's do fully zoomed in between the ClearVIEW. That's fully zoomed in on the ClearVIEW. So that's pretty close to similar. Now, Smart AV in Turkey is asking to switch between two presets. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's go to the Sony HE3. That's my Cam 3, I believe. Let's see. Okay, cool. Got control of it. Now, what I'll do, because this is a great question, I'm going to zoom in to a hidden PTZOptics we have over here. Got a hidden PTZOptics. All right, there's our, so there we go. So this is our hidden PTZOptics up here. What I'm going to do, and you can see my screen here, I'm going to click Set to Enter. So now now when I go to the call section, if I call 1, boom, wow, that was quick. 2, Enter, boom. Boom, that was nice. Okay, the switcher we're using is oh, well, there's two things going on here. One is we're using vMix for our PC-based, software-based. I like to use Wirecast and vMix for PC-based, and I have a TriCaster Mini when I do hardware-based. But this switcher here is the HC Joy, HC-Joy-G2, the HuddleCam Gen 2 RS-232 joysticks. It's $299. So that's the Sony EVI-H100S. Now let's look at the Sony SRG-120. So that is Cam 4. So I click Cam 4. I've got control of it. Let's do the same thing. Let's zoom into the next cam here. There we go. There we are. Go up to our next cam. Yeah, presets are the only way to really fully take advantage of these babies. All right, so now what I'll do again is I'll hit Set to Enter, and then I'll escape so I can get into call mode, so I can call 1, Enter. Boom. It's pretty fast. 2, Enter. So you'll notice the EVI is a higher quality camera when you're looking at this. There's the EVI. So if I go to cam 3, escape cam 3, and I go to call 1, okay, that is 1, 2, boom. Well, it's pretty similar. Okay, so that's the Sony's. We looked at the PTZOptics'. Now let's take a look at the Roboshot. So let's just take a look at the two Vaddios for just a second. I want to make sure I give them their due justice here. Okay, so here's the Roboshot. Let's do a full zoom out and a full zoom in. Fully zoomed out. Fully zoomed in. I don't have either of the Vaddios connected, and I kind of touched on why that is. Oh my goodness. Guys, we're already at 20 minutes. Can you believe that? So that has been our camera shootout. Can you believe that? That's how fast these things go. I'm going to roll the credits. Everyone stick around. We're going to answer all of your questions. But we did our job. It's just time flies. We're going to go ahead and jump into the next part of our webinar. Hang around, everybody, for Q&A.